Okay, so I'm gonna record this last part of the lecture in a coffee shop because today I had to be out, so hopefully the ambient sound doesn't interfere with any of the material. Today we're gonna start off with just doing the basic aspects of jQuery. So I know we've already gone into some JavaScript and jQuery already, so I want to just take you from beginning to end of the different free code cam modules we'll be using. Uh, the free code cam modules for this week will be all of the jQuery modules, and it might seem a little overwhelming, but I'm going to take you guys step by step through each one, so hopefully it's not too panicky. Anyway, so let's first start off with your HTML page. So you have a regular HTML page, and the first module talks about how script tags and document ready work. So script tags are used inside an HTML page to render JavaScript. So what happens is the browser takes a look at your HTML page and it sees these script tags, and then it says, okay, now I'm ready to render or parse through JavaScript. And when I say JavaScript, it's also including jQuery, because jQuery is a library built on top of JavaScript. And again, if I haven't already mentioned what jQuery is, then let me give a brief overview. So jQuery is a pretty cool library of different, essentially, convenience functions that you can use that make JavaScript a lot easier to use. So for instance, if you had to do something within 5 to 10 lines, jQuery has a method for you to do that. If you had to, I don't know, add CSS to something in JavaScript, it would take several lines, or it might take 2 or 3 lines, whereas in jQuery it would just be with 1 line, or with like a few words. So jQuery essentially just makes JavaScript a lot easier to use. So right now we're going to go into how the script element works. So again, this free code cam module mentions learning how script tags and document ready work. So the script tag, I'm going to put, let's see, this is the beginning of the HTML document. So generally I put the script tags before the end of the body. So just like that. And now we have some script tags. And I can put any kind of JavaScript in here, so I could, put some jQuery, find an element, change the CSS on it. So, we could target this well class, so we do that. And the CSS would be changed just like that. And I could do something like, change the color of it. So let's see, color of the text to purple. Let's see if that overrides anything. Yeah, maybe I'm not doing it right, but anyway, that's the general gist of how you can run JavaScript inside these script tags. And the reason that you want the script tags to generally be at the bottom is in case you don't have a function called document.ready, which we'll get into in a bit, your JavaScript and your jQuery works directly on the DOM elements in your file. So your DOM elements are any of these elements right over here. So you have div, button, div, this h4, div. All of these are your DOM objects, right? And if your JavaScript is loaded first before these elements load, then your JavaScript's going to run into an error. It's going to say, hey, I have no idea where this element is, but I want to make changes to it. So generally you want the document to load first before the JavaScript loads. So pages load from top to bottom, right? So in this case, the div is loading first, then the h3, then the div, all the way to the end with this closing div, and then you want the JavaScript to load, because once the JavaScript is, once the HTML and CSS is done loading, then you can start implementing any changes that you want on those elements once they exist. Okay, so now that we have these script tags, why don't we move on to document.ready. So the document.ready function right over here, it says to add this code. Now, the document.ready function is actually really cool because it basically makes it so you don't actually have to put the script tags at the bottom. You can just put the script tags anywhere. And your jQuery JavaScript will only run once your document is done loading. So it's going to actually say, okay, wait for all the HTML, the CSS to load, and then we'll start running this JavaScript. And that way you don't have to worry about, did I put the JavaScript script tags on the bottom, or, whatever, is there an issue with that? This takes care of that. So we're just going to add that in. And then we just close it with the same thing. So you do something like that. You just put all your jQuery JavaScript code in here. So I just put like, hey, all right, let's see. Let's actually get a real jQuery thing. Then maybe I want to change the HTML instead, or the text to blah, 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 blah. And look, on the right-hand side, it's changed blah, 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 blah. I just didn't actually say blah, 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 but let me write blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next step. So the next one is targeting HTML elements with selectors using jQuery. So this is a really cool feature of jQuery where you're able to actually target all the elements that have a specific selector and then use methods on those objects. So for instance, let's say that you wanted to change the HTML of all div elements. What you could do is use this jQuery selector called a bling selector because they like to be kind of funny. And you just put those quotes in there. So now you have a jQuery object, just like that, with that $sign, those two parentheses, and these quotation marks. And, alright, where the fuck is it? Okay, so now we want to do div. So we have a div selector. So again, that's an element selector, right? We have different ways of selecting elements. One way is an element selector, another way is a class selector, another way is an ID selector. There's other ways of doing it through attributes as well. We'll just focus on these three. Element selector, so selecting it based on the element type. So div, h3, h4, paragraph, button, any of those. So now this selects all the div elements. It'll find all the div elements, and it stores them in an array, actually. So it's an array of jQuery objects, and it's going to find each one, and then whatever change we make, it's going to make it to all of those. So let's just change that to meow, 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 and see what happens. And look at that. Now we just changed everything that was div to have a text of meow, meow, meow. And of course, that messes everything up. So we're just going to remove that. That doesn't make any sense. So instead, we are, let's see. Well, I don't want to give away what to do in this exact one, but that's the general gist of how to use the element selector. So let's move on to the next one. So again, before I move on, just in case, you start off with a bling sign, parentheses, and from there, that's it. That's just how you create a selector. So this will just select, whatever you want, like a button. Just select every button, and then you can implement methods on it. So let's say like HTML is a method, add class is a method, and this will only work on jQuery objects. So again, to create a jQuery object, just that weird $sign thing that they call a bling operator, along with these parentheses and the quotation marks, which encapsulate the selector. Cool. And eventually it's going to load. I don't know why it keeps disappearing. Right, it's still loading, that's fine. Alright, so we have target elements by class, ID. Okay, so then again, that's the same thing. So target elements by class is like, let's say we're trying to target this well. We just do .well. And then by ID, let's see, we're trying to target this left well, and has an ID of left well, so we just do left well. So again, we're just changing this part right here. So ID, class, and element selector. Cool. So now let's go to delete your jQuery functions. Uh, so it's saying just delete all these. Okay. That was easy. I don't know why it asked you to delete that. That was kind of pointless. Yeah, so how you delete stuff is use the delete button. I think you guys already know how to do that. Target the same element with multiple jQuery selectors. Um, hmm. Okay, so once you just use this add class function, and then just tie it to this button. So I mean, that's just how you use add class. It's kind of a pointless exercise, but I'll do it. So yeah, button, and you wanna do add class, and let's say that you wanna add class called animated. Well, that's it. That's literally it. And now if you want to do it for the other ones, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, I'm just going to give an example per, so instead of giving away the answer, I want you guys to work on that on your own. But what this will do is it'll actually add a class into your HTML with the class of animated to anything that has a button selector. Okay. So removing classes from an element is as simple as using the remove class method. So let's say that you have an element. I'm just going to use this div. So I'm just going to remove all. Let's see, remove class. That's pretty simple. You just use this little remove class. So send it an argument of whatever you want to remove the class of. So let's say that you want to remove this from all divs. So this would be the easiest way. And now I've removed all those divs, and it looks horrible now, but hey, it's removed. So they're showing very specific examples. Change the CSS of an element using jQuery. Oh yeah, this one's really useful, especially for designers. Okay, so you can change the CSS of an element directly with jQuery. So I did this earlier, but I didn't really go into it. So here we go. So here's some code for that right now. So let's say that you wanted to change the CSS of this target one to blue. So they did that for us. So all you do is, again, use a selector. This time you're using an ID selector. It starts with this hashtag. Then you use a CSS method, and you pass it an attribute, a property and a value. So it has to be a CSS property and a CSS value. These have to be valid. So you have like a color, which is a property, and the value of that property is blue. So now you change the target one from its original black to blue. And simple enough. Let's see what would happen if I change that to like purple. So I don't know if you guys are colorblind. That might not make a huge difference. Let me use like, I don't know, orange. There we go. So now you can see the obvious difference between the text. Alright. Alright. You can also disable an element using jQuery. And this actually sets the attribute disabled to true. Uh, so this sets the property of elements by using the method called prop, which stands for property, and it allows you to call different properties and values and set the different properties and values of elements themselves. I don't really call it properties because these are actually attributes. Properties are used mostly for CSS, but whatever. So you have this property, right? So you have disabled, and you set this to true, and this will make all buttons disabled. So that's what they're mentioning over here. So that's simple enough. And if you want to disable only the target one button, what would you do? If this would disable all of the buttons, then it would be pretty simple to actually just disable the target one, right? Because then you just change the selector. So I'll let you guys work on that. It's probably a lot of ambient noise, but hopefully it doesn't interfere with this. We'll find out. Changing text inside an element using jQuery is pretty cool too. You can actually change any of the text inside any of these elements. So the content of an element using the text selector. So let's say that you want to change. Well, they're using HTML. We can use text for HTML. So in this case, they want to use HTML. So we'll use that. There's two different methods. There's one called HTML. The other one's called text. So let's say that you have an element with an let's just select the H4s. And now inside the H4s, I'm going to put a P element, and I'm going to put yo gabba gabba. And look at that. Now we have yo gabba gabba put inside there. Pretty cool. Remove an element using jQuery. Okay. So now let's remove an HTML element from your page using jQuery. So you can actually remove the entire element. Let's say that you're like, oh, well, if a user clicks on something, then I want to remove this entire element from the page. So let's try and remove both H4s. So we want these to disappear completely. Not hide them, just actually delete them. You generally don't use this function, but we're going to use it right now just in case you guys wanted to in the future at some point. So I have H4, and we have remove, and as simple as that, and now they're gone. Easy. Okay. Use a pen to move elements with jQuery. So if you want to add an element to another element, use this method called append_to. And what it does is it adds another element to the end of the other element. For example, in this case, it says, okay, we have target 4. So let's find target 4. So target 4 is somewhere in here. Target 4, here we go. And we're appending left well to it, right? So if we wanted to append left well to it, let me just use this. And let's see what happens. Apparently nothing happens. Let's see. Oh, I think it might be frozen. Sorry. I'm going to move target 4 from our right well to our left well. It's not showing up though. Let's delete that. Oh, that's because we have target 4 is being removed. So why don't we get rid of that, so then we have target 4 again. There we go. So now we see that the element moves. So sorry, before what was happening was the element was actually deleted, and then I caused it to reappear again by just removing that remove element, and then I ran the append to function. So simple as that. Cool. Let's move on to the next section. Alright, so clone an element using jQuery. So you can actually copy an entire element or clone it. And to do that, you'd literally just type in this dot clone, and then you can append it to something else. This isn't that popular, but if you want to move elements by copying them, you can do that too. So let's say that you wanted to copy one of these elements and then use it somewhere else. You could do that using this clone. I'm not really going to get into that just because it's not that widely used. Ooh, okay. So targeting parent and child relationships between elements is actually really important. So every HTML element has a parent element from which it inherits properties. For example, this div inherits from this body inherits from like the HTML element, etc. So the child element of body is div, and then this h3 is under this, and so like they're all children of parents and parents of children, and it gets into this whole family tree. So if you use this jQuery function called parent, it allows you to access the parent of whichever element you've selected. So here's an example of how you use the parent function if you wanted to give the parent element of the left well element a background color of blue. So you have this left well element over here, and you want to give it its parent, and its parent is this one right here. Now you know it's its parent because it's contained, see this div? It's contained within this other div, so that means this is its parent. Its immediate parent. So you just say leftwell.parent, and let's see what happens. And it has a color blue. So now this this div over here has a color blue. So you just targeted the parent. Cool. Now, target the children. This sounds like a terrible thing to do. It sounds like very genocidal and something that a ruthless warlord would do or something like that, but we're actually just targeting the children elements of any of these other elements. So you have this element over here, which is a child of this. These are then in turn a child of this. So we now want to target these children from the parent element. So let's say that we have leftwell, right? And you want to target its children. Where are its children? This feels like Blue's Clues, where it's like, where's the clue? Alright, so the elements that the children are of this parent are right over here. So these three are children of this parent element. So you can change all of these to be color blue, all these buttons, by just targeting the parent and then using the children. And look at that, now all of them are blue, because you're targeting each one of these using this children of leftwell. Pretty cool. Alright, so you can target a specific child of an element using jQuery as well, using this nth child pseudo class. Now what that does is essentially you're saying, okay, so I don't want to just target all of them. I want to target a specific one of these children. So let's say that you have, in this case, they're saying, okay, target, so targets any one of these. The third target, so 1, 2, 3, give it a class of animated bounce. So if we did that, now only the third target of each one should bounce, right? So it should be target 6 and target 3 should bounce. So let's see if that works. So yeah, so the bottom ones bounce. Cool. They've been moved around because of all this crap that was going on. But essentially the bottom ones move. So we're just targeting just the last ones in each one of these. Here, I'm just gonna delete all this, doesn't let me comment it out. There we go. So target 3 and target 6. Cool. And you can also target even numbered elements in jQuery. So again, the pseudo class allows you to do not just nth child, but you can just do odd or even. So you can select like every other one. So every second element, fourth element, etc. So let's say that you want to do an even one. We can make every even element shake. So 2, 4, 6. And we did that because, oh, sorry. Here we go. Even animated shake. Oh, sorry. This is 0 indexed. So 0 indexing means that the counting starts at 0. So the first element is actually at 0. The next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when it's even, it's actually targeting 0, 1. So it's targeting this one. So 0, 2, 4. Even though it says 1, 3, and 5, the reason is because indexing, again, this 1 is actually a 0 inside the computer. This is actually a 2, and this is actually a 4. It's stupid as hell. I don't understand why they don't just use regular indexing instead of 0-based indexing. They use it all over the place, and it confuses the crap out of me sometimes, too. Okay. And finally, we can use jQuery to modify the entire page. Yeah. So this is like if you wanted to go like buck wild and just modify everything. You can just use this, and it would just change everything on the page. That's just based on the selector that you're using. So I'm using a selector called body, and that allows you to change everything in the page, right? Because everything is inside body, right? Everything's going to be inside this body tag. All right, so that's it. I'm going to be compressing this and then uploading it to YouTube and then sending it to you guys. If you guys have any questions, email me, let me know. All right, take care.